Thank you, Ms. McBride. I appreciate it. All right, next we have the transfer station report. Mr. Rogers.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. This report is given in response to questions from the board and questions from citizens as to the status of the transfer station. You have in your board package all of the transfer station documents, history, and minutes, about 600 pages worth, as well as a table of contents, a chronology listing where you might find each of those. And then I provided, I think it was a 2-page summary on where we are in an attempt to answer all the questions that had been given to us. I now just want to briefly go through the 9 questions I've listed on the cover sheet here for the agenda item and give you the short answer to all of those questions. Why did the county decide on a transfer station? If you'll recall, back in 2017, we obtained funding to refurbish all of the schools, the roofs, their lighting, their HVAC systems, and that included $4 million for the new cell of the landfill. As we spent that money and we're nearing the end of that contract for the schools, we decided to take a second look at the construction of another landfill cell because we knew that we would be committing to not just 14 years of the life of that cell, but an additional 30 years of care of that cell after it had closed. So this was a long-term commitment. We wanted to make sure that we were doing that right. Began talking to the engineers and asking them the questions. So why did we decide, and eventually the board did decide to go with the transfer station after many years of studying, considering other alternatives. The reason we went with the transfer station is because over the 28-year study period where we compared transfer station with landfill, it was determined that the cost was $10 per ton less over the life of the transfer station, or the life of the landfill, the 28-year period. So over 28 years, it was simply cheaper to operate, and that didn't even get into the issues of liability and long-term care, which we know because we already have 2 landfills we're currently caring for long-term. And, you know, with groundwater monitoring and leachate treatment and hauling, we know they have a long financial tail. And so it was simply cheaper to operate the transfer station. Number 2, when was the transfer station started?
Okay, so, yeah. I would like to echo what Mr. Marks said. I think it does need to be looked at very closely as we enter into this next stage with the cost to reopen that cell and versus what it's going to cost to haul. It's 75 miles at this point, one way to Amelia, 75 miles back. And with diesel at $5 a gallon plus, it's obviously at this point cheaper. In my opinion, my little bit of knowledge that I have of trucking costs, to keep it here in the county. But it needs to be evaluated, and you need to keep us as a board abreast of these decisions going forward.
I'll continue to do so. Yes, sir.
Personally, I want to say I think you made the right decision to uncap. So I don't think any of us question that. So thank you for having that backup plan ready.
Now can I say my piece?
I thought you, I'm sorry.
I was talking to
Go ahead.
the chairman, not you. So just good public policy. If someone was tuning in on YouTube and they watched this, they would have no idea of the deliberative process that this board went through to get to where we were. They would think, with the questions asked and public comment in the past, that we just kind of sat together, the 5 of us living here in Amherst County, and came up with this grand scheme. And nothing could be further from the truth. I had concerns about this thing through the whole process, because I'm not an engineer, and there's a lot about, but we got in the best experts that we could possibly get. And they talked to us, we asked them questions ad nauseum, over and over and over. And that process went on for 2 years. And we made the best decision we could, as Mr. Martin said, with the information we had at the time. It's very easy to sit back after several years and say, well, you should have done this, that, and the other. And then we had bond deadlines, We had financial implications there. But the other thing that hasn't been mentioned is at the time, DEQ was on our heels for a number of infractions. Thankfully, Mr. Lockaby helped to mitigate many of those. And because of the liability that we had in owning that landfill, that was another consideration. It was a strong consideration, and I supported it. Anyway, I just want to say that I'm very, very confident in the process, and I'm so confident in the decisions that we made as a board. Thank you.
All right.